I wonder where 5G comes from. Dad says we can see 5G in the clouds. I wonder how you get it up there.
Booster ignition and liftoff of Shuttle Endeavour with NASA's final space station crew compartment that brings a bay window view to our celestial backyard.
5G has arrived with more advanced versions coming. It has a new radio access network called 5G NR that uses millimeter waves, small cells, massive MIMO, beamforming, and full duplex. 5G brings us a new core network called 5GC, and a wide range of new services like live streaming using enhanced mobile broadband, driverless cars using ultra-reliable low-latency communications, and IoT sensor networks using massive machine-type communications. But there's some bad news for telecom operators. The 4G charging system is not compatible with 5G. Legacy network-based lawful intercept needs to be replaced. The regulators got new rules and policies. 5G isn't going to happen overnight. Many people can't see the forest for the trees. Everyone knows something about 5G. But there is too much scattered information. Pulse Telecom processes this fragmented information and joins the dots, so that a clear helicopter views of this very complicated technology is available for anyone who is interested. "5G networks operate at higher frequencies than 4G networks, supporting frequencies up to 60 GHz. 3GPP Release 15 defines two different frequency ranges. Channel bandwidths are 50 MHz, 100 MHz, 200 MHz, and 400 MHz. FR2 supports local multipoint distribution services, V-band, and Ka-band. Some FR2 bands are also used for satellite communication. 5G bands use the prefix N, for example N260, instead of 39 GHz. 5G new radio uses different types of cells. The first are femto cells for home and business. You can pause this video now to digest the coverage values. Another cell type is the pico cell for railway stations, airports, and malls. You can pause this video now to digest the coverage values. Microcells are used in urban areas. You can pause this video now to digest the coverage values. Metro cells provide extra capacity in urban areas. You can pause this video now to digest the coverage values. The current available RF spectrum is between 3 kHz and 6 GHz. It is becoming very crowded. Consequently, quality is suffering. New spectrum is therefore opening up between 30 GHz and 300 GHz. The higher the frequency, the higher rates of data it can carry. This higher spectrum has a shorter wavelength. Wavelength is defined in a basic equation, where c is the speed of light. The frequencies have a short wavelength, measured in millimeters. They haven't been used previously in telecommunications. Millimeter waves do not travel very well through buildings, structures, trees, leaves, or raindrops. If users move behind an obstacle, such as a building, or around a corner of a building, the 5G signal is lost. But for every problem in 5G, there is a solution. The problem of reduced coverage that is caused by millimeter waves is solved by using small cell technology. Small cells are thousands of closely located low-powered base stations. Small cells route signals around obstacles and thus ensure that the signal is maintained. This is useful in a city, as 5G devices always connect to the best signal. MIMO means multiple in, multiple out. The word multiple refers to the amount of antennas connected to the radio unit. MIMO base stations can increase the 5G capacity by a factor of 22. When massive MIMO is used, the signals that cross each other from the multiple antennas can and do cause serious interference. To solve this problem, beamforming was introduced. 5G user signals will crisscross with signals from other users. A massive MIMO base station receives all of these signals. Base stations keep track of the timing and direction of the arrived signals. They use signal processing algorithms to triangulate each source. The base station now knows the exact location of each 5G device and plots the best transmission path. Signals can be bounced to stop interference with other signals, meaning that data streams are only sent to the intended device. In time division duplex, time is shared by allocating time slots to users. This applies to the direction of the transmission too. One time slot is used to transmit, and one is used to receive. In frequency division duplex, two frequencies are used, one to transmit and one to receive, but both at the same time. In full duplex, transmit and receive happen at the same time, using the same frequency. Full duplex has been difficult to achieve, due to the reciprocity principle, meaning, the direction of the signal waves are not taken into consideration. Technology can now stop the backward roll of RF waves, enabling the simultaneous sending and receiving of a signal on one frequency. But, full duplex is still a problem. This is caused by echo, when the RX side receives some of its own TX signal. A special echo canceller is needed to resolve this issue. 5G can process 1,000 times more traffic than 4G can, and is 10 times faster. It offers three main services: enhanced mobile broadband, ultra-reliable low-latency communication, and massive machine-type communications. Enhanced mobile broadband offers speeds of up to 10 gigabits per second. "5G also offers ultra-reliable low-latency communications for mission-critical broadband applications, such as telemedicine, and applications such as driverless cars. Massive machine-type communications is often used for IoT applications and other non-human communication. There are three types of radio access networks, and these form a relationship based upon subsets. Open RAN uses open interface specifications between its network elements. This stops vendor lock-in situations due to hardware or software incompatibility issues. This can lead to a significant reduction in CapEx and OpEx for their radio access networks. Open RAN replaces proprietary interfaces between the base unit and the radio unit, enabling the use of different vendors. vRAN virtualizes the baseband unit so that generic hardware can be used. The functionality no longer resides in dedicated hardware but in the software, allowing operators to purchase non-branded hardware. This is referred to as a white box. All software and hardware can be supplied by different vendors. The baseband functionality is consolidated across multiple sites or in the cloud. In 5G NR, there is a logical separation made between the control plane and the user plane. The function of 5G New Radio and 5G Core is fully separated from the transport functions that link the two. Mobility is fully controlled by the 5G NR, including handovers. The basic node in 5G NR is the G node B. It performs multiple functions like radio bearer control, radio resource management, mobility control, admission control, scheduling, and measurement configuration. The protocol stack is the same as in 4G, except for the new Service Data Adaptation Protocol. The SDAP maps a specific QoS flow within a protocol data unit, or PDU session, to a corresponding radio bearer, with the appropriate level of quality of service, abbreviated QoS. There are two types of 5G networks, standalone or non-standalone. Non-standalone networks, abbreviated NSA, have 4G interworking. Non-standalone networks are used when 4G still exists. There are different interfaces in standalone and non-standalone networks. Inside a GNB, control and user plane are virtualized functions residing in centralized units and distribution units. Users and DUs are interconnected with three GPP interfaces. The CUs allow for load balancing towards the DUs. There can be multiple RUs connected to one DU. In 5G, the front hall describes the connection between the radio unit and the DU. The mid hall describes the connection between the DU and the CU. The back hall describes the connection between the CU and 5G core. There are four scenarios that exist to configure 5G NR. The RU, DU, and CU are all co-located with each other. The back hall can have a length of 200 kilometers. The latency value is 250 milliseconds. The RU and the DU are co-located with each other. The maximum mid-haul length is 80 kilometers, with a latency of 1 millisecond. The DU and the CU are co-located with each other. The maximum front haul length is 20 kilometers, with a latency of 0.1 milliseconds. However, it is also possible to have nothing co-located. The CU, DU, and RU are located at different sites. In this scenario, the back, mid, and front hauls will all be used. The maximum distance and latency values change, depending upon the haul. Fiber optic GPON networks are used for the X-haul. X-haul is the transport mechanism between 5G core and the new radio's applications, and within the new radio network itself. The Enhanced Common Public Radio Interface, abbreviated as ECPRI, on the front haul, maps user data that is sent to and from the radio unit. The ECPRI is also the transmission interface between the high and low physical layers in the radio access network. To compensate for bandwidth variations, the protocol layers reside in virtual functions. These functions support the requirements that the service needs most. Function splitting enables network slicing and is one of the most important features of 5G. By distributing protocol stacks between different components, and the imperfect front haul between RU and baseband units can be achieved. 3GPP has defined options whereby operators can decide which protocol stack reside in which virtual function. There are 8 option splits. Options 1 to 4 are defined as higher layer splits. Options 4 to 8 are defined as lower layer splits. To split the protocol stacks over 3 virtual functions, 2 options are needed. A very popular split with mobile operators is the 7 to 2 split, whereby the 2 splits that are needed are options 2 and 7. There's no one-hat-fits-all solution. There are multiple options, each with trade-offs between cost and complexity versus latency and transportation. The choice of the function split is dependent on deployment scenarios, business objectives, and the choice of services that are required to be supported. Radio waves used by 5G are a type of radiation, so some people are asking whether this poses a health risk. Radiation is the way that energy travels through space, and there are many different types. Radiation that has frequencies higher than that of visible light, like the ultraviolet radiation rays in sunlight and X-ray, can potentially cause cancer if the exposure is high enough. This ionizing radiation breaks the chemical bonds in molecules, which can damage cells. Thankfully, 5G radio waves are 10,000 times too low to damage molecules and are therefore classed as non-ionizing. Exposure levels can be checked by independent monitoring authorities annually at cell sites to ensure safe levels. The WHO and the Swedish Radiation Safety Authority continually investigates possible health effects. The authority released a comprehensive review, quoting that no health risks with weak 5G radio waves had been established. Many researchers have explored possible connections between radio frequency radiation and cancer. The international conclusion is that exposure to radiation at levels experienced when using 5G handsets is not hazardous. Some people are concerned that 5G waves can cause headaches, difficulty concentrating, and poor sleep quality. No studies have shown conclusive evidence of any of these or other health effects. In theory, 5G frequencies could make a difference to bees and other insects. However, the general international opinion is that 5G frequencies will not harm humans, insects, or the environment. So 5G rollouts continue worldwide. The 5G core, known as 5GC, replaces the 4G Evolved Packet core. In the core network, user traffic is routed from the user equipment via the 5G new radio user plane function in the 5GC to the data network. The data network can be the Internet, centralized IP multimedia subsystem for voice over 5G, or a corporate local area network. The user traffic being transferred is known as a protocol data unit session. A PDU session is unique to the UE that is sending and receiving the data. For every PDU session, a quality of service flow is created with a unique QoS flow ID. If a user is engaged in more than one session at the same time, that user will still only have one PDU. Within that PDU, there will be a QoS for each session, and a new QoS is added whenever existing QoS requirements change. QoS flows provide for different levels of latency, speed, and priority. The speed characteristic can be guaranteed or non-guaranteed. Welcome to the 5G Core. Let's meet the family. This is the Access and Mobility Management function.
I look after mobility, registration and connections.
AMF will know a user's tracking area if the user is connected to the network. If the user is idle, the AMF will know the user's potential cell. The AMF helps decide whether a user is allowed on the network and then authenticates him or her. The AMF provides the UE with a temporary identity, which the UE can use to communicate with the network. The temporary ID is also used by the network for paging. Based on the requested service, AMF selects the respective SMF for managing the user session context. This is the session management function.
I look after session management and quality of service policy enforcement for the control plane. Did I mention service registration and discovery and establishment as well?
SMF establishes and modifies protocol data units. SMF tears down PDUs when they are no longer needed. Meet the user plane function, UPF. The UPF routes and forwards user data plane packets, inspects packets, handles the quality of service, and enforces policy for user plane traffic. Policy enforcement could, for example, be the throttling of data speeds. As a user moves from one GNB to another, UPF remains the anchor point for the user plane in 5GC. Meet the Unified Data Management, UDM. UDM performs user ID handling, subscription management, user authentication, and access authorization for roaming. The UDM stores the user's profile and holds security keys for access authorization towards those users. UDM keeps track of which AMF a user has been allocated. Based upon a subscriber's profile,
he can access the internet with a level 4 quality of service.
UDM informs the AMF and SMF which data network the user may access, and at which quality of service. Meet the Policy Control Function, PCF. The PCF applies policy decisions, accessing subscription information, to govern the network's behavior. For example, a certain geographical area could be identified by a cell in that GNB. Cell users may only be permitted to access a corporate's intranet, but not the internet. The policy enforcement can be dynamic, according to current network or service conditions. The Authentication Server function allows the AMF to authenticate the user equipment. The Network Slice Selection function maintains a list of the operator-defined network slice instances. The AMF authorizes the use of network slices based on the user's information stored in the UDM, or query the NSSF and authorize the use of network slices based on the service requirements. The NSSF redirects the traffic to an intended network slice.
Slice 8 for this guy.
Yep, confirmed.
Please connect this guy to Slice 8.
Okay.
The Network Repository function maintains the list of available network function instances and their profiles. It also performs service registration and discovery so that different network functions can find each other via APIs. For example, SMF, which is registered to the NRF, gets discoverable by AMF when the UE tries to access a service type served by the SMF. 5GC is a virtualized core, meaning that the functions are not hardware nodes, but software processes. The software is run on COTS servers. COTS is the abbreviation for Commercial Off-the-Shelf. Function network virtualization makes scaling up or scaling down of capacity very simple, quick, and cheap. A new AMF, for example, can be created in minutes. The management and orchestration function facilitates any changes needed in 5G core using REST APIs. Network slicing is the creation of multiple logical networks residing over the same physical infrastructure. With slicing, it is possible for operators to consider users as different tenants, with each having different service requirements based on SLAs and subscriptions. A network slice, supporting mission-critical services like remote surgery, has different speed, latency, and reliability requirements than a user speaking on her phone. Network slicing capabilities need to be available across 5G NR, xHaul, and 5GC for an end-to-end service. Because 5G doesn't specify xHaul, this is left up to the operators to decide how to achieve this. In 5G NR, slicing can be performed based upon a specific geographical area, a specific cell, or a specific user. The control plane is divided between the SMF and the AMF, with multiple SMFs associated with one UE, and one SMF per slice. A 5GC can have multiple AMFs, but only one AMF is associated with one UE, even if that UE is connected to multiple slices simultaneously. Each network slice is uniquely identified by single network slice selection assistance information. This consists of a mandatory slicer service type field that identifies the slice type. It can also contain an optional slice differentiator field, which differentiates slices with the same SST field.
What do we know about network slicing?
The UE can use multiple network slices simultaneously, but is limited to 8. Radio access network slice instances serve one or multiple slices. A single radio resource control per UE is provided. The radio access network selects a slice instance and an AMF. The protocol data unit sessions are slice-specific. There are 2 UEs. There are 3 slices. Slices 1 and 2 have a common functional area, because both slices are being used by the same UE. There is 1 AMF per UE. Each slice has its own SMF. There is a control plane connection to each SMF in a slice. AMF1 is shared between the 2 control plane connections from the first UE. Each slice has its own policy control function. All user plane connections are via the user plane function. Network slice selection function and network repository function are common to all slices. In 5G, every slice is different. In 5G, security is much more complicated to manage than it was in 4G. 5G poses an elevated security threat, partly because there are more vectors through which adversaries can attack. IoT devices make an excellent target for cyber attacks because they could be taken over to form a botnet to perform distributed denial of service attacks in order to paralyze networks. The risk to critical services such as driverless cars and healthcare is considered concerning by some. If the 5G networks enabling these types of applications are interfered with or shut off, the results could be disastrous. A security risk is posed when a 5G device switches to 3G or 4G, and it is exposed to vulnerabilities that haven't been addressed in the previous generation's protocol. 5G no longer uses dedicated hardware and an isolated SS7 signaling system. Software programs running on COTS hardware are always connected to the internet and are therefore prone to attack. The need for greater security protection using firewalls, AAA, and other security policies are therefore paramount. Many people fear that manufacturers may engineer a backdoor, allowing others to snoop on data. 3GPP, ETSI, and IETF are all working on 5G standards and specifications to ensure improved network security. 5G network security is a very big and complex topic. Most, if not all mobile operators, now consider 5G security to be a very important consideration. The cutover from 4G to 5G is not going to happen overnight. There will still be a considerable period of time where 5G coverage will only be available in certain areas, and certainly not everywhere. 5G networks therefore need to be interworked with the existing 4G network. Radio access network interworking can be done at either a LTE level or a 5G level. RAN interworking can be achieved using the Packet Data Convergence Protocol. The traffic is switched within 20 milliseconds. An alternative is to deploy the core network bearer split. The traffic is switched within 140 milliseconds. Interworking can also be achieved at a core level. The traffic is switched within 125 milliseconds. For core network level interworking, a single registration for both networks, or a dual registration, one for each network, can be deployed. The UE registers to either one of the 4G or 5G networks. Single registration requires that 4GE Node Bs are upgraded. As is the case in 4G, 5G is a data network that is not designed for voice. However, users still want to be able to make and receive voice calls. There are many over-the-top services available, but not everyone is subscribed to the same service. Very few OTT services allow calls to emergency numbers. In mixed-generation networks, seamless voice call handovers with 5G are problematic and can drop. For voice, when a user travels from 5G to 4G, the 5G core is the anchor. The complex signaling and timing between 4G and 5G can cause dropped calls. A centralized IP multimedia system, or IMS, provides the anchor function for improved voice handovers by removing the need for signaling between the EPC and 5GC networks. Session Initiation Protocol is used to signal between the two networks and the IMS via the IMS Centralized Services, or ICS. Both the UE and the EPC must have ICS installed. Some disruptions are possible, but the call will not be dropped. 5G can hand voice over to 3G, but not 2G. Regulation for 5G will be different in each country. In most countries, existing 4G regulations will be expanded upon to include new 5G services and technologies. The updated regulations will cover mainly the new frequency spectrum, 5G FR2. 5G needs large amounts of new spectrum, so defragmenting and clearing prime bands should be prioritized. Regulators need to make spectrum across low, mid, and high bands available to support all use cases. Regulators should avoid inflating 5G spectrum prices, as this risks limiting network investment and driving up the cost of services. This includes excessive reserve prices, or annual fees, limiting spectrum, for example, set-asides, excessive obligations, and poorly designed auctions and sales. Regulators must consult 5G stakeholders to ensure spectrum awards and licensing approaches consider both technical and commercial deployment plans. Regulators need to adopt national spectrum policy measures to encourage long-term heavy investments in 5G networks. Ongoing collaboration between operators, vendors, and regulators will ensure that 5G deployment plans meet all regulatory requirements in a standardized manner. Traditionally, a lawful intercept target was a person, a device, or a telephone number. In 5G, the target could be a car with an autonomous network driving slice, a household IoT device with a home appliance slice, or just a number plate. 5G enables the ability to identify surrounding systems that may aid in criminal or terrorist investigations. For example, 5G can identify nearby AV recordings to provide further information about a target in a riot. 5G lawful intercept needs to support traffic at 10 gigabits per second, multiple network slices, and a network of IoT devices. 5G low latency traffic resides purely within the 5G new radio. A traditional lawful intercept service that connects only to the core will be blind to traffic not leaving the 5G radio access network. It will also be blind to traffic using other network slices. The 5G lawful intercept service requires a new HI4 interface for metadata changes, like mobile number portability. Because user content is becoming increasingly more encrypted, its value for lawful intercept purposes is lower. Therefore, delivering more metadata, like the target's location, becomes more and more important. Lawful intercept is a network virtualized function and can share hardware with other network virtualized functions. It can also reside in the cloud. "5G networks will need to charge for their services in the same way as 3G and 4G networks do. Charging could be time-based, volume-based, event-based, or content-based. A new charging approach, called the converged charging system, is used to drive policy control in the 5G core. It allows new types of charging triggers, which are essential for massive-scale IoT, edge computing, and private networks. The converged charging system replaces the diameter-based, online charging system. In 5G, network elements no longer generate call detail records, or CDRs. Instead, CCS produces CDRs. This forces operators to change its procedures, for example, regarding its revenue assurance. The CCS consists of a charging, rating, account balance management, and charging gateway function. The charging function determines the quantity of the resources being used, for example, time. The rating function determines the value of the network resource usage. The account balance management function is where the user's account balance is stored. The charging gateway is the gateway between the CCS and the non-3GPP billing system via the ASN.1 syntax. CCS handles both prepaid and postpaid accounts. As CCS now produces CDRs, a more robust architecture is required. A fire in a building that accommodates the CCS's hardware would be disastrous, and this risk must be mitigated by the architecture. In 5G, marketing for consumers and marketing for enterprise customers are two different things. Marketing targeted at consumers involves communicating the new features that 5G offers, mainly high speed and low latency. Marketing towards enterprise customers is identifying 5G solutions capable of solving business problems. RFPs are issued, requesting a technical solution for well-defined service requirements. Existing infrastructure is made ready for installation and network integration. Infrastructure improvements will reduce operational expenditure regardless of whether a 5G network is deployed or not. Infrastructure or existing network issues should never cause any delays to 5G deployment. Operators prepare their call centers for questions relating to 5G services and 5G faults. Operators start training their technical and non-technical staff and make changes to existing processes to accommodate the new 5G. New staff and consultants are hired to help achieve 5G business readiness.
5G networks are connected to other networks like mobile legacy and landline networks. This is because very few people have full 5G network coverage 100% of the time. 5G doesn't define the transmission between its sites. Most operators are considering using a fibre network for this, one that uses the same technology and physical infrastructure as FTTX. In some cases, this infrastructure already exists. It's obvious that a 5G network inventory management system is an absolute must for telcos, especially to register the physical network that is shared with the other networks, but also to register the logical and virtual components that other networks maybe do not have yet. Defragmented, conflicting and unsynchronized data is very dangerous. I thought I'd end this video with just a quick overview about how 5G needs to be part of a massive single point of truth for your entire network, 5G and all. If after watching this video you have any questions, please contact me directly and I'd love to speak with you.
PNM is a telecom network inventory management system that overcomes the high cost of storing fragmented, inaccurate, incorrect, conflicting and missing network data by reducing a telco's CapEx, OpEx and carbon footprint. PNM reduces CapEx for network upgrades by enabling telcos to produce highly effective RFPs, identify reusable infrastructure, accurately assess the total cost of network upgrades, avoid expensive delays in deployment caused by unexpected technical issues, avoid being forced to rectify unexpected faults while their vendors wait at full cost. With expected infrastructure sharing between competing 5G telcos, a single point of truth database will become even more critical. PNM reduces OpEx by enabling telcos to avoid outages caused through the accidental disconnection of live traffic, especially in multi-vendor networks. Enable design engineers to optimize their network. Allow field engineers to locate the correct outside plant assets. Allow NOC engineers to correctly steer field staff. Ensure that failed routes switch over to the best performing redundant routes. Many telcos still operate legacy equipment for historical reasons. Faulty or missing technical data prevents some network users from being migrated to newer technology equipment. This means that telcos are unable to switch off the barely used legacy equipment, resulting in an unnecessarily high demand for cooling capacity and an expensive power bill. PNM enables telcos to identify the legacy traffic, to reroute it to newer, more energy-efficient equipment, and then to switch off the old legacy equipment. This further enables telcos to remove the older equipment from their exchanges, enjoy the extra real estate and the business opportunities that this will provide, reduce the cooling and enjoy the subsequent reduced power bills, make a substantial contribution to a reduced carbon footprint. PNM registers telecom sites, nodes, ports, and every physical, logical and virtual connection along with their properties and technical processes that binds them together. PNM is future-proof and has been designed with 5G, FTTX and OTN in mind, but is also compatible with legacy networks. PNM allows clients to register their network and infrastructure assets, including type, function, location, quality, capacity, and lifecycle. PNM displays its network data in many formats, including tables and line diagrams. PNM draws its own floor plans based upon the data that is entered into it. PNM displays cables, ducts, subducts and fibers on a Google map to ensure that field engineers always find their outside plant assets. Automatic capacity calculations for power, optical loss, thermal and physical capacity are displayed on the system's dashboard. More details can be found in our e-brochure. The telco's network data is captured and validated before it is migrated into PNM. Telcos may do this independently or engage Pulse Telecom to connect to PNM via an API, assist them remotely, or conduct an on-site technical audit. The client maintains control of his or her budget by having the freedom to upgrade or downgrade support as often as is necessary throughout the entire process. The following use cases are based upon personal experiences with telcos from all around the world. One telco assumed that there was sufficient room for extra cables in a trench. The road was dug up for nothing though, because the trench was full. Another telco assumed that its sites were sufficiently cooled. Unfortunately, service was shutting down because of the heat. The cable management department of a large European operator assumed there were sufficient fibers for a 5G upgrade. This was numerically true, but most of the fibers didn't actually work. A mobile operator assumed that there was sufficient room for extra antennas on a mast that was already full. Nobody bothered calculating the power budget when a new 4G network was connected in parallel to an existing 3G network. The power plant overheated, caught on fire, and the exchange burnt down. In another network, an operator didn't realize how little bandwidth had been allocated and the impact this was having on their customers. It wouldn't have made any difference, because unbeknown to that operator, they did not have enough equipment ports to provide the extra bandwidth. They also suspected that an earth problem was causing slow data downloads, but their records did not tell them how the earth was wired, so they could not find the fault.
Hello, I'm Henry Dykstra and I'm the CEO of Pulse Telecom. We look forward to discussing our Pulse Network Manager solution with you soon. I'm sure you'll be impressed as to how many technical and commercial benefits are on offer. Let me quickly take you through the next steps.
We invite you to a free consultation on Zoom or Teams to discuss your network upgrade plans, and any OPEX concerns that you may have. You will then be invited to participate in a guided tour of PNM, using our 5G model network to explain the many features and benefits that PNM has to offer.
I'm David Emerson and I'm CIO of Pulse Telecom. We would like to give you PNM for free. Assuming you're keen to learn more, we will give you a full version of PNM that you can use on your own for 30 days. During that time, you can use your own network data to populate PNM so you can see how it fits your business. And we are always on hand during that period to help you and to answer any questions that you may have.
We then start implementing the project plan, using an internationally recognized project management methodology, adapted to the local country and its business culture. Whether you are a mobile network operator, a fibre provider, a regulator, or a telco of any description, don't allow your network to give you fake news. Contact us and let's discuss your single point of truth.